Thank you. I have a thought that I wanted to bring up. I saw a newsletter from you at one stage where you talked about this being a burden or being burdened. I don't know if you
Yes,
remember it.
I do. Yes, with my
And
mother-in-law.
yeah, that's true. And it spoke a lot to me because I am in the situation where I feel that I am the burden in some situations, especially because I have a situation where I have some walking difficulties, and over these last years it's been a lot worse. So sometimes I need a wheelchair or can use a wheelchair. And I find it difficult to implement it in the family. And with the family, I talk about my sisters because I live alone. I have a daughter, and it's not really a problem with her. We've been out with a wheelchair also. But with my family, with my sisters, we go on holiday, and I find it very hard. I feel that it's like I feel that it's going to be a burden when I talk about that. You have to help me with a wheelchair because I can walk, but I walk with the crutches. But then I get very strenuous and have pain and can't walk very far and things like that. So it's like kind of new that I want to take this wheelchair in. And I had a situation where I tried to open up on it, and I didn't get a response that okay, you just bring it, no problem, we can help you, but more like, oh, okay, but not this. I felt that I needed a little bit more. So I don't know. I just thought this because you had this newsletter, and I just felt, wow, this is just the situation I'm in. So I thought maybe if I did the work with you, it could be interesting to hear maybe if you have some more open seeing on this.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's
Well,
the
let's
thought
see.
about it. Mm.
Let's see it. So the situation is when you were trying to open up about it and you didn't get a response. They didn't say, "Oh yeah, go ahead, bring the wheelchair. That'll be no problem." They did not say that. So then you're
Right.
left with the feeling like you're a burden. Is that the idea?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So in that
Mm.
situation, anchoring yourself in that situation, is it true? You're a burden.
That is what I feel. Yes.
Okay. And can you absolutely know it's true? You're a burden.
I do feel it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's that.
It does come the feeling.
that
Mm.
we're just looking for your truth as you see it in this moment,
Mm.
and that's perfect. So how do you react? What happens when you think that you're a burden to your sisters there in that situation?
I find myself like searching for this kind of comment, no problem. Of course, we are going to help you. Um, so I'm like disappointed, and I get this feeling, okay, it's going to be a burden. It's going to be an extra burden. Um, and I get the feeling that, okay, they are not really open. In my family now, both my parents has died, but in my family there has been like we don't use anything. We don't, especially not a wheelchair or crutches or anything like that. So it's that's a feeling that I have had over the years with my family, with my parents, and so I get all this. Okay, that's how it is in our family, because I've been with others, and I also been with my ex-husband and his family, and in that sense there wasn't a problem. I could easily use it there. It was very open and welcome. So it's like I can't get through that wall there. That it's okay. I mean, actually, it's for me. It's okay for me. It's something that I actually have longed for many years because I have had walking difficulties. If we are going for a long time, or like museums or stuff like that, and but I feel this wall is there, and then I can't come through it. I can't change it. So I feel stuck.
And what are the emotions that come up with that stuck feeling?
It's just sadness and disappointment and like not being seen with the difficulties that I have and that I always had. I mean, also as a child, but it was never really seen in the family, not openly. I learned later that my parents have noticed it, you know, and have been around a bit, but it's not what I grew up with. I grew up with, you know, that we don't see that.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel it's the same, and I feel this sadness, and I feel this not being seen, and I feel different. Especially this, I feel it's going to be an extra burden, because normally when I cope with using crutches, then I cope as well as I can, and I always pretend that I can do what everybody else can do. Yeah.
Yeah. So how are you treating yourself when you think you're a burden to your sisters, to your family?
Well, I get this that I draw back, and I get this, okay, I better not go. I mean, I can go with on holiday, but I stay home if there's some special outings, or I feel like odd, you know, like the odd one out, and not like really included fully. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you're talking with your sisters and you're saying, you know, you tried to open up and then you didn't get that response that, oh yeah, no problem, bring your wheelchair, we'll help you. You didn't get that. After that, how do you treat your sisters in any way? Is there anything that comes up, even if it's just in your mind? How do you start to treat them differently?
I draw back, and I feel that, or I get the thought that, okay, you know, it's my elder sister, but she's very quiet, and it's like, so I feel I feel like she's not she's not capable. She's not open. She's not. It's not that she is like, no, don't want to have anything to do with that. It's just that not taking a stand. She's just like silent.
So how do you treat her when you see her that way?
I think I treat her like, okay, yeah, I can't expect any help from that side. Have I ever done that? So I treat her like, okay, she is not really capable. Yeah.
So then
Shame, because she's
own.
really, really kind. I mean, she's a really kind person.
Yeah. Okay, so who would you be when you're having this conversation with her and you don't have the thought that you're a burden? Even when she doesn't enthusiastically say, oh, sure, bring your wheelchair. It will be no problem. I'll push it for you. If she doesn't say that, who would you be if you don't think that you're a burden?
I think I will see her more as the person she is. Without the thought. Because as I said, it's not that she is like denying, don't want to have anything to do with that, but she's just like not really expressing herself of her own opinion.
So what do you see when you look at her? Who is she there?
I see actually that she looks at me with a very sympathetic look, like, or shame, like if she almost feel like sorry for me. Yeah.
So interesting, because
yeah, it is actually.
As we look at with the thought, I'm a burden, and without the thought, I'm a burden, you can see that this thought, I'm a burden, blocks the view of her sympathetic or kind view of you. Because
That's true.
without the thought, you could start to see it. With the thought, it's only, I'm a burden, I'm a burden, I'm a burden, and I have to withdraw. So I'm always fascinated how a thought like this can color my experience, can color what I even see, because it distracts so much, I'm a burden, that I don't see the actual understanding or compassion or sympathy that she may be having for me, even when she doesn't say it in loud words, but you can see it, right? There's a sense.
It's like with the thought, I'm very much in myself, but without the thought, I'm actually seeing her instead. Yeah.
That's it. These thoughts that we believe put us into our self, not even our self, it's like our story, which is within our self. And when we're not thinking that thought, it's like the veil is lifted and we can see what's actually going on in the reality in front of me. But I can't see it when I'm thinking the thought. That's what we're experiencing here directly. So this is a powerful thought. I'm a burden. It just closes everything, and now I'm just, I am what I believe I am, which is a burden.
I got this idea that I'm a burden in many other places from too. So it's, so it can be like a kind of a habit that it just comes in immediately.
I think a lot of these thoughts are just that, habits. I picked it up once, I used it once, here it is again, here it is again, and then I start to have a story that I really am a burden, and of course, it blinds me from seeing what could be going on with the other person. So seeing the effect of that thought, I am a burden, in this situation, talking to your sister, how would you turn the thought around?
Because there's the opposite, that I'm not a burden.
Yeah, so that's the direct opposite. And now let's see if we can make any sense of that, that you're not a burden. Even when she doesn't say, oh yes, for sure, bring the wheelchair, no problem. Even when she doesn't say that, how is it possible still that you're not a burden to her?
Well, as I know my sister, as the person she is very kind, and she very happy to help. Sometimes she's very tired because she has grandchildren and everything, but as the person she is, she wouldn't mind. It might be a bit strange for her to going with a wheelchair, pushing a wheelchair, but no, as a person she is, she wouldn't. But still, I have this feeling. Yes.
That's when the thought comes back in. I'm a burden. So you can see it coming and going, like the clouds that sometimes the sun is there, and then again the clouds come.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah. So when the thought is active, I'm a burden, then oh yeah, no, but really,
yeah.
But keep exploring. We're going into the unknown here. Like,
Yeah.
how is it that you're not a burden to her?
Well, I know
What
that
could
she
it
is
be?
happy that I exist. We've been through some years with losses in the family, and so it's we are three sisters, and it's very important for us that we have each other, all of us. So in that sense, I'm not a burden. Because
When you
I
look
think
at
she's
it,
happy that I exist. Yeah.
right. So exist in a wheelchair or not in a wheelchair, she's probably happy that you exist.
I think
period.
so. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's something there. Keep going. How else could it be that you're not a burden, even though she doesn't say enthusiastically that she will help you?
There's something about that. I mean, what I have learned for myself and also with my daughter is that I mean, it's my daughter actually that has told me that you have to use a wheelchair because otherwise we don't get anywhere. And so I had it with last summer on the family holiday, and my daughter and I could go for a long outing because there was a wheelchair. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been possible for me to take part of it. And so, actually, with the wheelchair, I'm less a burden than without.
Yeah.
because
That
without,
is
I
so
have
cool
to
to see.
walk slow and the others has to walk slow with me, and I can't cover much distance, and yeah,
Yes,
but she
yes.
hasn't known
So
yet,
the wheelchair,
my sister hasn't met
wow,
yet.
that hasn't seen the wheelchair, hasn't been with you in the wheelchair yet.
Yeah, she hasn't really have that experience yet.
Okay, right.
Mhm.
So she doesn't have that direct experience, but
No.
you have already had that experience, and
Yeah.
it's quite possible when she has the experience that she may also see, oh wow, this is really intelligent.
Yeah.
Now we can go for a long outing, spend the whole day, and enjoy ourselves, and you can come with them,
Mm.
and you don't have to. Everyone doesn't have to wait for you.
Yeah.
I can even imagine that if you stayed home and they are going on the outing without you because you don't have a wheelchair and you cannot go, that might even be a burden for them that they're unable to take you with them.
Yeah. And I'll be a little bit grumpy because I want to go. I want to take
Yeah,
part.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So you're going to be less of a burden all the way around if you have a wheelchair.
Yeah.
She
That's
just
true.
doesn't know that yet. She hasn't had the experience yet,
Mm.
but you have.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
it's possible that you will not be a burden to your sisters. That's the turnaround we're looking at.
Mm.
It's possible once they understand the benefit.
Yeah.
What's another way we could find an example for this turnaround? I am not a burden. Um, I'm not a burden to her, even though she didn't give you a response that was enthusiastic. How's it still possible that you're not a burden, even though she didn't respond positively?
Shall I look into another turnaround, or it's possible?
It
Mm.
could be. I have a possible example if you want to
I
hear.
would love to hear it. Yes, please.
You said something about your family did not speak of things like if there was something like this, that you just didn't bring that up. If you even had something, some health issue or something, and later you found out they understood, it was not spoken of, right?
Mm.
But just because it's not spoken of doesn't necessarily mean that there isn't understanding or some, like, in other words, when you tell your sister you will be in a wheelchair, that could go in the place in her mind where we don't speak of those things. But that doesn't mean she thinks you're a burden. It's just like there's a language barrier, like a family cultural barrier or something.
That's true.
So
Yeah.
the mind can think I'm a barrier, I'm a burden to her,
Mm.
but it may not be actually. It just could be that she cannot say it out loud that, oh, that would be no problem,
Mm.
because it's not in her language.
Mm. So you mean in that sense that actually she doesn't have a thought about it at all herself, that she is a burden?
It's possible. It's possible.
Mm.
But she cannot say that you're not a burden. I don't know. We
Mm.
don't know.
Mm.
We don't know for sure. But we're looking at possibilities.
Mm.
And even the idea that she may feel limited by whatever, like, family culture is there, um, doesn't necessarily mean that she's thinks you're a burden. You said yourself she's a very kind person.
Yeah, that's true.
So it can be like a kind person wearing a mask. I'm still kind. but I still am wearing a mask. So you can't see the kindness, but it's there. It's possible. That's what we're thinking.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned some other turnarounds. Is there another one that comes to mind?
That's she's a burden.
She's a burden. Okay. How could that be as true? And the purpose here is just to find the balance, right? You're thinking you're a burden. I'm a burden. I'm a burden. I'm a burden. How's it possible she's a burden to you?
Well,
as
right
much
in
as
that
you're a burden?
moment, yeah, she's a burden to me because she doesn't react the way that I would like her to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So literally, you're treating her the same way that you're afraid she is going to treat you, or she is treating you, as a burden.
That's true.
And nothing wrong about it. It's just notice that we see each other as burdens sometimes when we don't get it the way we want it. So she may want you to not have to need a wheelchair. And when you do need a wheelchair, it's a little bit of it's like, oh, okay, I have to rethink things, a little more work I have to think. And you may want her to accept that you have a wheelchair. And when she doesn't, you feel like, okay, she's a little bit making it harder for me. It's a burden. So then there's an equality there. She thinks I'm a burden, maybe. I think she's a burden. Yeah, a little bit. So the whole thing of making each other burdens is not so serious. We both are doing it. It's what human beings do. They see each other as burdens sometimes.
Yeah, that's true.
So she's a burden. And it also gives me direction. If I want to be like, let me see if I can see her as not a burden first. I'll take down that. Let me work on seeing her as a burden and turn that around first. And then we'll see if she still thinks I'm a burden. It may not be as stressful for me. I mean, what's causing the stress here? She thinks I'm a burden, or I think she's a burden for thinking I'm a burden.
That's true. If I didn't have the thought, if I wasn't holding myself back because of the thought, then I'd just ask her directly, would you mind helping me with the wheelchair?
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. So the burden is thinking that she doesn't like it and she thinks I'm a burden and I shouldn't ask and all of that. It becomes burdensome, the whole thing. But if I get clearer and I stop seeing her as a burden and myself as a burden, then even if she does think I'm a burden, it's not so much of a problem because I can still ask.
That's true.
Like no one can make me feel like a burden except when I believe it. She can think it, but when I believe it, that's when I feel it. And so she's not the problem in a way. It's just when I'm taking it on, or I'm thinking, or the other way I can feel terrible is if I think she's a burden. So either way, if I think I'm a burden, or if I think she's a burden, it's stressful. But if she thinks I'm a burden, as long as I don't think I'm a burden,
no problem.
Where's the stress?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Or as long as I don't think she's a burden for thinking that, where's the stress? No problem. So stress only comes when I think something, when I think I'm a burden.
So another turnaround is to the self, to that I am a burden to me.
Yeah. So how are you being a burden to you in this whole situation more than is necessary?
I'm a burden to me because I have this belief, and I'm stuck on this belief. So when I am in that kind of situation, the minute that I meet just the slightest, not totally openness, then I like, okay, I am a burden. So the thoughts comes up very quickly. So that's the burden to me,
Exactly.
because if the thought didn't come up and I could see through it and I could just ask directly, what do you think?
Yeah.
Instead of expecting her to react what I would like her to do.
That's right.
Yeah.
You're expecting her to lead the way, but you can lead the way.
Mm.
But when I see myself as a burden, then I feel like I'm a burden. I don't even want to ask because I feel so bad. But the only burden here is my belief that I'm a burden. Like if you compare the burden of having someone push you with a wheelchair and the burden of thinking you're a burden because they're going to have to push you, which one feels like a heavier burden?
To me, it's the thought that I have. It's when I believe it, when I think it. That's the burden to me. Yeah. And of course,
So you have two burdens here.
Yeah, and of course
Go
I
ahead.
can leave it up to the others, to my sister or the others, to say, no, this is too much for me.
Exactly.
I can leave
So
it up
you're
to
burdening yourself with their business also. You're burdening yourself to make sure that they are going to be happy with you.
Yeah,
That's a burden.
yeah,
And then
yeah,
burdening yourself
yeah.
with the idea that I'm a burden. Like there's a lot of weight being carried here. It's a lot of burden.
That's true.
When in reality, the only thing that needs to happen is someone to push you with a wheelchair.
Yeah.
That's probably not so burdensome in reality. It's the thinking and the emotions that make it really heavy, burdensome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, you mentioned with the article that I wrote about my mother-in-law and the thing that is the hardest actually to deal with her is her thought that she's a burden. That's what makes it, that's the hardest thing. Like we don't mind, we'll do anything for her, right? Cooking, cleaning, taking care of her, washing her, whatever we needs to be done. Well, that's not a problem. We came here to do that. So it would be our joy to do that. But when she thinks she's a burden, then she won't let us because she feels like she's a burden. She feels guilty. She doesn't want to be a burden, and we feel like we can't do anything. We're carrying her mind, which is harder than her body.
I remember that from the newsletter. Yeah. And I also actually have experienced it myself with my elder parents. My father died just a year and a half ago, so it's not that long time since. But yeah, that was the same thing. I came early to help, and then no, had already done and don't really need, and so okay, I'm wasting my time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it can be a gift to give someone your weak point and say, can you help me?
Yeah.
It takes courage to do it, but it can be a gift if someone is truly a kind person. They will probably say yes. And if not, that's okay too. But it's not complicated.
Yeah. So actually, in that situation there, I was like a bit trying to be manipulating somehow, instead of just being like open and saying, I need help. Will you help me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's burdensome. Right?
Yeah.
Most of us would love to push you in a wheelchair, but it's not so enjoyable to get manipulated or to try to have you think for us what we will do.
Yeah. Sure.
So
Mm.
it's interesting to think about.
Mm.
Very interesting.
Mm.
And I love that the more I do the work, the more I am able to ask for what I want and just be direct about it.
Mm.
And you can do even you could write a whole Judge Your Neighbor worksheet, for example, on this situation or any other related situation. And you may find more thoughts that are connected here, and you may find a lot to explore.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And as you do, you may start to find more and more options.
Yeah.
That's what usually happens for me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Great. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.